right partner to achieve that?
I would say success would be being the most viewed boxing event of 2025. So that mark right now is Canelo Crawford. For us, it's not about Netflix or pay-per-view. It's about the event, the right partner, and distribution. There's a lot of talk about pay-per-view is dead, and I always say it's similar to the movie business. For many years, people have said the movie business is dying. And you know what? It's become very difficult for independent movies or mid-budget movies to actually break through. But there's still blockbuster movies over and over again, like Zootopia 2 that you're seeing right now.
Speaking of the movie business, real quick, any thoughts on the Netflix Warner Brothers merger?
No thoughts.
Thank you.
Nikisa, Sarah Shepherd from the Atlantic. There's been a lot of talk on social media about ticket sales this week, as there was with the Gervonta Davis fight. How is it looking, and are you expecting the stadium to be full on Friday?
I think, look, it's the week before Christmas. Miami is a last-minute market, and I've said this to my team, I've said it to our partners, I've said it to Jake, and I mean this with all due respect. Anthony Joshua is not a household name in the United States. He fought once here in New York. Tickets did well, but it wasn't astronomical, and he never came back. Part of Anthony's calculus in doing this was coming back to the biggest market in the world and getting his name refreshed, right, and reborn by beating the biggest face of boxing in America. Do I expect it to be full? Yes, we do.
And Alicia mentioned the 3-minute rounds was not strictly her idea, and perhaps it came from MVP. Is the 3-minute rounds for women something that you want to see on more of your cards? Will you only do it for women's fights at certain levels?
Women compete 3-minute rounds in the amateurs. We want them to have the choice to do 2 or 3-minute rounds. Honestly, just like if the men want to do 2-minute rounds like Jake and Mike did, and people are like, that's not a professional fight, but it is when the women do it. So for us, it's about choice, and it's also about product. And when I say product, oftentimes you'll hear, oh, women's boxing is more exciting than the men's because it's 2 minutes. In the same token, you'll hear people say, women's boxing doesn't do well. Don't know why MVP is investing in it. So is it exciting and doesn't do well, or is it not exciting and does well? I don't follow it. I do believe with 3-minute rounds, it will give the athletes time to set up a finish. And end of the day, the most exciting part of the sport is finishes. Thank you.
Nikisa Bidarian, Sport. You mentioned that not everybody here knows Anthony Joshua. We were filming down at South Beach with some fans today, and everyone did know Jake Paul. What they did say, however, was surely this fight isn't real, it's scripted, surely it's scripted. Now, are you getting frustrated with that narrative that's still going around amongst fans, casual fans?
It's expected, and I think somebody said it here, maybe it was Oscar. I guess if Jake gets knocked out, then they'll say it wasn't scripted. But I'd look back to the Tommy Fury fight, and Mike Perry, who I love, released the script for the Tommy Fury-Jake Paul fight, and when Jake was gonna knock out Tommy Fury. Jake did knock him down, but he didn't knock him out and took the first loss of his life. So it doesn't bother me. It's just, as Jake said, it speaks to how unbelievable the challenges he's taking on and the performances he's putting on is.
On that Tommy Fury fight, when you look at Jake Paul, who lost to Tommy in 2023, and you see the Jake Paul now, what is the biggest change you've seen, both as a person, as a fighter, mentally, physically?
Your biggest lessons and your biggest wins come from your losses, because it shows who you are as a person, how you react to it. I always look at Conor McGregor when he lost to Nate Diaz and how he bounced back from that, because he accepted it. Later on in his career, he took some losses and didn't accept it well. So I think Tommy Fury was a monumental moment for Jake to refresh, refocus, and realize this isn't as easy as he thought it was, and really triple down on his training, re-examine the team around him, bring in new folks, and that gave him new life and new purpose.
You just mentioned Nate Diaz. He's still a free agent, and Tyron Woodley was just here and said that's somebody he'd like to fight. Is there any possibility you see Nate Diaz working with MVP again in the future?
Look, we continue to have great discussions with Nate Diaz, even though he tried to beat me up on stage when Jake and Nate fought. But love Nate, love his team, and yeah, we hope to continue doing things with them for sure.
And lastly, some people are concerned for Jake Paul, on paper, this is a big mismatch, right? Like, we'll see obviously on fight night, but as a partner, obviously you're friends with his as well. Is there any part of you that's also concerned for him going into this fight?
Look, I'm nervous for him in every single fight, right? As I am for any of our fighters. I can't lie. When he made this opportunity manifest in March, I didn't like the idea of it. By July, I'd accepted that he wanted to do it. By October, I felt like I had him in a place where he would put it off for a while. Then when this opportunity came back up, he wanted it more than anything else, and my job is to support what he wants ultimately, right? I read an article that said, I saw one guy, what's that guy's name? Amir Khan. Oh, Nikisa wants Jake Paul to die, right? Then I saw another article say Eddie Hearn sold out Anthony Joshua. Eddie Hearn and Nikisa didn't do anything. These two athletes wanted to fight. Our job is to give them our opinion, our counsel, but if they still want to fight, we have to make that fight happen.
Jose with MMA Fighting. We spoke with a lot of the fighters on the undercard, and they spoke about the eyeballs that the main event will bring. And some of them are obviously, they're 1-0, some of them are MMA fighters. Can you just talk about the structure of the card and how important it was to get some of these MVP fighters on this massive stage for as many eyeballs as they can get?
Yeah, I mean, look, we try to be strategic in the product that we put out on any event that we do. So if you look at the main card, Jake was fighting Gervonta Davis, who's from the DMV, right? DC, Maryland, Virginia area. When that fight fell away, we said, okay, here we have the most highly touted Olympian from 2024 in the US, who's from the DMV, and we can show the world that MVP has some of the best young male prospects in the world. Then you look at Anderson and Tyron. That's a whole different demo on two fronts. One, MMA, two GOATs. I don't care who you are. If you're a UFC fan, if you're a PFL fan, you're gonna be like, okay, I might check that out. And you got all of Brazil back in Anderson Silva, which is a massive market on its own and very important for Netflix. The co-main is our core strategy, which is supporting women's boxing, giving them equal platform. And again, that lesson comes from me from MMA when Ronda Rousey was the biggest star in MMA in 2015, unequivocally. Bigger numbers than Conor McGregor, Anderson Silva, John Jones, you name them, she was bigger. I believe women's boxing will have a star like that.
Last one for me, you mentioned Brazil being important. Anderson was in here, and he teased something that you, him, and Jake had plans for the future after his fight against Tyron. Was there anything you can shed light on that?
We've had some great conversations with Anderson ever since 2022. I have a ton of respect for him. I think, you know, he went from being viewed as, oh, he's considerably the GOAT of combat sports, is what Dana White said in one interview, to being dismissed. And that often at times happens with fighters when they fall out of favor with their promoter there. So we think the world of Anderson. We appreciate him being a participant here in this event, and I think he's got a tough task ahead of him, as does Tyron.
Nikisa, you kind of said earlier about being nervous. Do you expect when you sit down, I'm sure, as you said, whenever Jake fights, you're always going to be nervous, but when you sit down ringside, do you expect to feel nerves like you've never had before?
I have nerves for every single fighter on the card. I had nerves tonight at the showcase, right, for our three fighters, for Nat Dove, for Shannon, for Luan. So I care about our athletes. Now, sometimes we have our athletes fighting each other, which is the future of what this sport is going to become more and more, given what they're trying to push in terms of the Ali Act. But even in that situation, I feel nerves for both fighters, because I want all of them to be successful, win or lose.
I mean, anyone who fights Joshua, you know, 245 pounds, runs the risk of being knocked out and hurt. But if, because of the controversy around this fight, if Jake is knocked out and he is hurt, do you expect that the blame will go to you and the promoters and the commission? And if that is the case, would you be willing to accept?
I don't think the only blame is not taking the opportunity. This is a massive, massive opportunity for Jake Paul. It is high risk, but it's extremely high reward. He feels good about it. He's very convinced in what the outcome is, and it's up to him to deliver.
Nikisa, just on future fights for Jake, obviously he wants to get through Anthony Joshua.
We should talk about future fights for Joshua too, though. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but just for Jake, what could be next? Because I know Oscar said it a minute ago about the fact that how do you top something like this? Obviously Anthony Joshua is now working with Team Usyk, I know. Jake has spoken about Usyk before? Has there been
Usyk
any kind of
spent more time
conversations?
talking about Jake, about doing MMA with him, right? That's what Usyk has consistently put out there, which we love Usyk. I think he's going to be here on Friday. And, you know, Jake and Usyk and MMA doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think that's a big marketable event, but, you know, mad respect to him. It's not about what's bigger, it's about what's the next strategic move in building his career and also building his brand and building MVP. So Mike Tyson and Jake Paul did 125 million viewers, 108 million live, 125 live plus one. Then he fought Chavez, a lot less viewers, but it was about fighting a guy who was extremely experienced, a world champion, you could say past his prime, but never been knocked out in his life. And Jake stood in there and did work. For 8 of those 10 rounds, he won very easily. After Anthony Joshua, depending on what the outcome is, will determine what the right next step is.
Yeah, with Jake, is it kind of more he wants to go down the traditional route of trying to pick up titles, pick up belts in whatever fashion he believes he can? Or is it about getting these big paydays against kind of more exhibition sort of fighters?
Well, this is definitely not an exhibition, right? Jake was going to have an exhibition with Gervonta Davis. Jake had Gervonta Davis on his list in 2021, right? So that wasn't like something that just came up, hey, here's a big payday, let's take advantage of this. This is no fucking exhibition. This is like life or death in terms of his career going forward, because it's going to determine what his opportunity set is. So yeah, I think the objective going forward is to continue to do two things, and I've said this repeatedly. A, pursue a world title. Not multiple world titles, because I don't think belts define the champion defines the belts, and Jake Paul has shown that. And two, continue to put on massive global mainstream events that bring outsized eyes to a very niche sport, which is boxing.
Nikisa, when you guys have managed Jake's career, the fights have always been looked at as risk-reward, right? And I think you've done that very well, is that each one has a different sort of risk-reward. There is a moment, however, where the risk outweighs the reward. How close did this one come to that line of where the risk with Joshua is outweighing the reward?
For me, when he mentioned it in March, I just said it doesn't make sense. Like, why are we doing this, right? For him, it was pretty clear. I think I can beat this guy, and I will show the world who I am. I think when I look at where we're at now and his career, I think the risk reward makes sense here.
With the Tank fight falling out, right? You guys have been, that's not the first time that's happened to you with opponents disappearing on you. But to be able to get to this point now where, like you said, not an exhibition, a real fight, a very, very dangerous opponent, does it feel like this is almost the best case scenario you could have had with that original fight falling out?
I don't think it's the best case scenario. I think it's pretty remarkable that Jake was willing to do this, wanted to do this, and that ourselves, our team, and Netflix were able to come together and make this happen in such a short amount of time. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, credit to Eddie Hearn for working with me to make it happen, because it takes their side to do it as well. I think there was a lot of other opponents that would have been easier to pull off, to fight, to beat, but this is what Jake Paul wanted. And what Jake Paul wants, I'm going to do my best to get.
Last one for me. Jack's obviously hit, you know, the risk that Jake's fighting here, and he's fighting a risk. For you, Jake gets the win. What's the emotion going through at the moment? Is it excitement about the future? Is it happiness for your boy? Or is it just relief that he's got it done and he's out of there unhurt? What do you think the emotion you'll feel is at the moment?
I think the last one that you said, relief, just to get it behind us and knowing that he's good. Win or lose, that's all I care about. It's not this. Jake Paul's brand is going to continue to build. It's going to continue to become more powerful in boxing. We have many things planned for 2026. We're not looking to the next opponent like AJ seems to be, but we're definitely being strategic about how we approach MVP's business in 2026. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Thank you for being here.